Senses energy efficiency, not maybe a new topic, but in the what we might term the post-Greta world, if you like, it's perhaps higher up on the agenda again. What are your sort of broad thoughts on different ideas around energy efficiency in the data center at the moment?
So I think there's a lot of talk actually about sustainability right now, and efficiency is a big lever. If you want to work on greener data centers, more sustainable presence for IT, efficiency is a great lever. So is renewable energy. We've done a lot with big data centers to make them more efficient. I mean, Schneider in general pitches efficiency. So I mean, our role that we can play as a company in this equation is to drive efficiency. We've done for 10 years or so. We've been working on the efficiency of these big data centers. And today at this conference, we're talking about renewables as well. And all the conversations focused on these big data centers. But for me, there's a lot more opportunity if we look at the IT that's outside data centers. So distributed IT, edge computing, the telecommunications networks, very interesting opportunities. So these networks and edge IT, they've all been deployed without a lot of thinking about the efficiency of these systems. And there's some big opportunities. So for example, if I take 10,000 micro data centers, so a single cabinet data center, and say each of those is 10 kilowatts each, the math there works out to 100 megawatts. So those micro data centers at 10 kilowatts each are 100 megawatts. These are big numbers, even if you're talking about big data centers. If we do the same, if we do some of the same things we did with big data centers to make them more efficient, the equivalent of taking the PUE down by 0.4, for example. If I reduce the effective PUE of those 10,000 micro data centers by 0.4, it's the equivalent of taking 50,000 cars off the road from a CO2 standpoint. So these are pretty powerful things, but there's not a lot of attention here. If you look at the amount of electricity that big data centers use, it's about 300 terawatts per year. The amount that telco uses is about 400. The amount that edge IT uses is about 500 terawatts hours per year. And of all those pieces, the big data centers, it's growing very modestly, about 3.5%. The telco piece is growing at about 11%. It's going to be, in 2035, it'll go from 400 terawatt hours per year to 2,000. And this is probably explained by 5G. But when 5G rolls around, you're going to have all this equipment with all this power requirements. There's not a lot of attention yet to the efficiency. So our story would say, pay attention to the evolving telco network, to the edge IT that's rolling out and building, to the edge data centers, the micro data centers, and there's tons of opportunity with efficiency.
Okay, so with that efficiency at the edge, I mean, I'm thinking in a lot of cases, edge applications, by their nature, they're going to be sort of on and off a lot of the time, so that, not a consistent workload. They'll come on to do something, then sit idle for quite a long time. How do you sort of overcome that? I mean, presumably you can power down a lot of the kit. Is that some of the areas where you can see improvements?
I think you're going to see some chaos for a while. So you're going to see some stranded capacity in some form, like you're describing, either compute capacity or power capacity. I think it's going to be very inefficient for a while. But eventually you'll start to get companies that are offering edge services with micro data centers, sharing those facilities, optimizing that, using, of course, virtualized solutions, and that'll start to get optimized over time. We got a long journey ahead of us to get there, and in the meantime, there's going to be a lot of inefficiency.
Okay. And obviously you mentioned 5G is, if you like, the catalyst perhaps to the edge really becoming sort of big time. Where are we with that? Because, I mean, everyone talks about it as if it's, tomorrow it's there, but I'm guessing it's quite a long journey with the infrastructure that needs to be built out, etc.
Sure, I'm not a 5G expert, but it is we do see it in early applications. It's being tested in certain cities. It's being used in campus applications or stadiums where everything is sort of close, where you can pilot and try the whole solution out. But that's how it's emerging at this point. It's going to take a long time, many years for 5G to really be a mainstream reality.
Moving back to the renewables, again, I'm sure there have been discussions about it for a number of years. Has anything changed recently? Is it just the fact that people are more open to using those alternative power sources? Clearly their reliability or lack of for a data center is perhaps an issue. Has that gone away? Where are we?
Well, a couple of things on renewables is for a number of years, some of the leading players have tried to move towards a carbon neutral net zero position, but they're doing it with offsets, meaning they're buying renewable credits, or for the companies that actually are getting involved in any kind of production, they're just tying that back to the grid and offsetting. They're not using renewable energies to directly power data centers, for example. That's starting to change. So you see companies, Microsoft was here doing a keynote, and they talked a little bit about that this morning. They are absolutely down that path and will continue. So the shift we see now is renewables will actually be used to power data centers. So that's coming. Now, with all that edge IT that we just talked about, or the telco networks, that's going to be much more complicated. That equation gets much more complicated. It'll take much longer to move down that path.
Right, but I'm guessing that like some sort of remote kiosks are powered by a couple of solar panels, it wouldn't be impossible to envisage that situation, although again, if the sun don't shine, you might have a problem, but at least when it is, it can make a contribution. Is that the kind of thing at the edge? Or?
You're right, but what's more likely for renewables is that edge applications will either sit within some sort of enterprise, say a retail chain. The company has develop their own strategy for renewable energy sourcing. They will have orchestrated it at the store level, and that micro data center will sit inside the store. In a smaller company shared environment, the equation really is around getting renewable energy delivered to the general business community, the general facilities that these edge solutions are sitting in. It's not going to be about, I'm sure there'll be the kiosk that has a solar panel with a battery somewhere that's storing energy. There'll be some of that. I think that it's going to be difficult to do critical applications with that formula. Yeah. For applications where it's okay to have downtime, or maybe it'll work.
And in terms of the types of renewable energy, is there, as far as people are concerned, is it all the same flavour, or I don't know, is hydropower? I know in the past, again, people have talked about building data centres next to dams for obvious reasons, although obviously that might be a bit of a flood risk if it all goes horribly wrong. But I say, are there any sort of priorities, or it's all renewables as far as people are concerned?
I think it's all renewables, but some comments. I mean, certainly solar is still dominant, and wind following that. On hydro, we talked this morning a little bit about the effects of climate change, not preventing it, right. But if it's happening now, when you're siting a data center, and say you were including hydro in your plans, you'd have to think about extreme weather. You have to think about new parameters for the dam, for the river, make sure that you're safe. That's a new consideration as we deal with the real effects of climate change.
Yeah. And in terms of overall energy efficiency, I've been at one or two events where people point out that the data centers themselves might be very efficient, PUEs of 1 point whatever, but obviously they exist and there's an IT load in there, and the IT load is perhaps not efficient. How much do you think companies like yourself, or data center owners, operators, have an obligation to work with those IT guys, and is it already happening? Because you say it's good to do the data centers, but the IT load could be very inefficient inside it. So
it's a good point. The answer to your question is I think we have a high obligation, because we have to, no matter what numbers you use, to look at how much power we're using as an industry. It's a lot. We're a significant consumer or user of power, electricity, energy. So we have an obligation to optimize it. I do think that cooperating, partnering, aligning with our IT vendor friends and optimizing all that, it's critical. One of the things that we've been talking about lately is the cost of all the redundancy that we build in to data centers. And maybe we should think twice about doing that, because there's a huge cost from a sustainability standpoint.
Yeah, I think I remember a Schneider white paper a long time ago suggested that at least the theory, instead of having one mega data center, you could have 100 sort of micro data centers with the same load, and obviously a bit like, say, Google or whatever uses with their servers. If you go down, they just rebalance the load. You might potentially do that with data centers. Is that still
Sure.
pie in the sky, or do you think again, with Edge that's something that might happen, sort of consolidating?
That's a key. That's a key part for distributed loads for edge data centers. That's absolutely part of the equation for sure.